They have a fabulous kosher restaurant caterer.
Boker Tov, everybody. Today's stuff is Kuf Tet 109, and we pick up here. What's happening here? Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay, today's daf is Kuf Tet 109, and we pick up here at the very bottom of Kuf Tet Bet, the Mishnah. It's actually, these dafim are very well laid out. That they end at right before the next Mishnah. All right, so we pick up the very last line of Kuf Tet Amadet. I'm with that. We're now dealing with the 7 rulings of Admon. So let's take a look. Haposek. We just had the recent one about the whole yayin and shemen issue, if you remember. About the oil in the jugs and whether the person is actually claiming the jugs as well. Haposek most chosno. Now back to marriage issues. A person basically makes a deal. The whole idea that the father-in-laws would make a deal with their son-in-laws that they would sit and learn and they'd support them. Well, this doesn't talk about sitting and learning, but it does talk about a deal. Okay, so somebody made basically a deal with his son-in-law. You marry my daughter, I will go ahead and give you $10,000 or whatever it is he agreed to. And then he stuck his foot out at the guy, like this image of sticking him out and like he'll trip over his leg, but basically means he's reneging on the deal. It's some idiom. Rashi says maybe it means you stick out your foot to somebody, your shoe, and you say, "Go clean the bottom of my shoe" or something like that.
So the son-in-law?
No. The father-in-law basically is now he's acting in a disrespectful way, but it's not to be about the disrespect. It basically just means that he's reneging on the deal.
And is after he married the daughter?
No. Well, he did kiddushin apparently and not nisuin. Okay, and now it's clear that he's not planning on keeping up his end of the bargain. Okay, so what's the story? Pasha lo zarekel. He's kicking him in the tuchas. So Teshev ad shetabim lo shah. So this guy has no responsibility to do anything. This son-in-law who did kiddush and not nisuin. It's like, you want to give me the $10,000 you promised, I'll marry her. You don't want to give it to me, I'm not even going to agree to divorce her. So by the way,
this wasn't al Tanai though. Right?
It wasn't al Tanai. So now there is an interesting question in Tosfos, which is, was the condition binding or not? Right? Remember the Gemara before that when they make a deal and then they immediately get married right afterwards, and that's that makes even the oral contract binding. So Tosfos has 2 interpretations. One is it's not a binding contract because that was only when they married right after the deal was struck. Here they made the deal a week later they got married. So it's just an oral agreement, it's not binding. But nevertheless, since that was the understanding and the condition, so on the one hand, you can't go ahead and sue me for the $10,000 because it wasn't a binding contract. On the other hand, the son-in-law says you can't force me to go ahead and do nisuin. So I can't get the money out of you because it wasn't a binding contract. But on the other hand, that was my understanding. That was our agreement. And I'm not going to go ahead and do nisuin. That's one way of reading it, that the contract wasn't binding. The other way of reading it was that the contract actually, or another way is that the contract was binding, but it would only be binding when actually it finally ended in nisuin. Okay? So therefore, so anyway, that somehow it's still not binding yet. Anyway, one version of it is that it's not binding. And the other version is that it is binding. So if it is binding, why doesn't the chassan just basically sue the guy? Okay, so basically says because he's not interested. Either the guy has no money, so suing the guy won't do any good, or he's not interested in having to deal with all the court issues of suing the guy. Okay, but the bottom line is that even if it's a binding contract, to some degree, the father-in-law is making his life very difficult. He's not just willfully keeping up his end of the bargain. Okay, but it might be easier to understand. The more simple sense of this Mishnah is that it's somehow not binding, and he's reneging. It was an implicit understanding. He's reneging. And therefore, what's left to the son-in-law? All that's left to the son-in-law, he can basically say, "I'm going to refuse to get married until you decide to keep up your end of the bargain."
So,
okay. But the interesting thing also is that then just give her a get. Why is he not giving her a get? So unfortunately, it might be an indication of an early fact of using the get as leverage. Right? He's got a lot of control over this woman. She's stuck. She can't marry anybody else, and he's refusing to marry her. And it sounds like he's using that as a certain degree of leverage. Okay, so that's what it says. Let her the hair on her head grow white. The father is reneging on his deal. The chassan's entitled to do that.
So he's a right basically to keep her as an aguna.
That is essentially what it's saying. Admon Omer, Admon says, she can say, if I had made the deal and I was reneging on the deal, then then fine, then I would be willing to sit till the hair of my head grew white because I was reneging on the deal. So you're entitled to go ahead and pull your shtick. Which by the way is also troubling, because it basically says, well, if somebody did something to me, then that gives me license to go ahead and do something back in terms again of that like sort of whole
stuff.
Whatever. Anyway, but she says, look, at least I'd understand it if it was me who had reneged. But it's my father that made the deal and my father that reneged. I'm not to blame. Make up your mind. Either do nisuin or give me a get. Okay, I'm sorry, you won't get the money, but you can't hold me hostage. Okay, I didn't do anything wrong.
Here, Admon's setting precedent right in the Mishnah, pushing back on them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I see the position of
Admon. What happened to like Rabbi Yochanan? Didn't we have that whole?
No, before it was Rabbi Yochanan who was Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai who was agreeing with Hanan, and here we have Rabbi Gamliel who's agreeing with Admon. Okay, now the Gemara says like this: our Mishnah that frames the issue that the father made the deal is not like the following Tana. To Tanya, we turn to Brisa. I'm a Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Lo nechlu Admon v'chachamim ala posek mosel chasno pashat lo et haregel. The Admon and Chachamim do not disagree when it was the father that made the deal with the son-in-law, and then the father basically reneged. That she is entitled to say, "Look, I didn't make the deal." Abba. Pasak, a lie. My father made the deal. Why is it my fault? What did they debate? When she herself made the deal. In that case, the Chachamim say, look, you made the deal, you reneged. Let her, you brought it on yourself. So the hair of your head could go white. He doesn't have to do anything. Admon says, no, even when she made the deal and she reneged, she could say, look, yes, I made the deal, but I thought my father would be the one to write the check. Okay, and now, but my father is not writing the check. A lie. Money, it's out of my hand. I don't have any money. It's not. I mean, I made the deal, but ultimately the not fulfilling it is out of my hand. It's out of my control, and you can't go ahead and let me suffer as a result. And if you want to give me a get, but at least set me free. I see the words of Admon in that case. Okay, so that's even more, how he is not entitled to use the get and to hold her hostage. Tani, we talking the Brisa.
I see the get.
Yeah. When is all this true? Bigdola, if she's an adult. If she's a minor, kofin, then you would actually force. So the Gemara says, kofin laman, who are we going to force in the case where she was a minor? You'd force the father to pay up. Okay, so that doesn't make sense. If she's a minor, then she less is bound by her agreement than if she's an adult. Why would you more force the father to fulfill his end or her end of the bargain if she's a minor? Ella, Amarava, Kofin Laba'al Litain Get. You actually would force the husband. If she was a minor, according to this version of the Breita, right, the only reason that she's bound is because this Breita says that if the father makes the agreement and the father reneges and it's not her fault, you basically force the guy to give a get. The only time that it might change, that there's a debate, is if she makes the agreement and she backs out, right? So in that case, here we're saying even that debate would only be when she was an adult. But if she was a minor and she made the agreement, then it's not really a binding agreement. She's a minor. So you also can't hold her hostage, okay? So according to this Breita, everybody agrees the husband will be forced to give a get, assuming he refuses to marry her. He'll be forced to do something, either if it was the father that made the agreement, so she can't suffer as a result, or she was a minor when she made the agreement, so she's not really bound. The whole debate is that she was an adult when she made the agreement and she's reneging. And even in that case, Admon says you cannot hold her hostage. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. I'm a Rabbi Yitzchak Rabbi Elazar Mishmei Dechizkiya. Kol makom shema Rabbi Gamliel ro'ani es divei Admon. Wherever Rabbi Gamliel says, I see the position of Admon, halacha kamosa, we rule like him. Now, the two things that Hanan had said, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, Ro'ani es divrei Hanan, and that was, so the whole two things that Hanan had said, you had somebody else, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, affirming it. Here by Admon, Admon's going to say 7 things, and Rabbi Gamliel only affirms it in 2 of them, or in 3 of them, the first 3. This is the 3rd of them. After this, the next 4 things that Admon is going to say, Rabbi Gamliel is not going to say. I see his position. So what we're saying is that we rule like Admon in these first 3 things that we just said. Okay, the whole thing about the jars of oil. The other thing we said about the why just because I'm male I lose out, although Tosfos said that really wasn't the halacha, that was really just he was being astounded. And this last thing about that you are not allowed to hold the woman hostage even if the deal is not being fulfilled. Okay, so those are the things we rule like Admon. The next 4 that Admon is going to say we don't necessarily rule like him. All right, so Kol Malkum Shamar Rabbi Gamliel, a minute. Rani Skibi Admon halachimoso. Amali Rava the Rav Nachman. Rava said to Rav Nachman, "Afilu bebraita." Would that apply even to the Breita's version of this debate? Right, the Mishnah's version of this debate is that the father backs out. The Breita's version is Admon says even if she's backing out, you can't hold her hostage. Okay, so would it even go according to the Breita's version of this debate? Amalei, he said back to him, "Mi coming on b'Mishnah." Did I say wherever Rabbi Gamliel says in the Mishnah we rule like him? No. B'chol makom, I'm a Rabbi Gamliel coming in. I said wherever Rabbi Gamliel says we go like Admon. So the Breita is also a place Rabbi Gamliel says we go like Admon. So we rule like Admon even in the Breita's version, and therefore even if she's the one that makes the deal and she's the one that's backing out, he is not allowed to hold her hostage. Okay. I'm Rabbi Zera, I'm a Rabbi Bar Yimya. Betram Shamar Hanan, the 2 things that Hanan said, halacha kiyotzebo. We rule like him in similar. Now, there's a question what the word kiyotzebo here means. I would have thought, and Tosfos says what it means is, we rule like him in similar cases as well. Not only the exact case he's talking about, but we sort of derive a principle and we apply that principle to similar cases. Rashi says kiyotzebo means that the one who also affirms it. Meaning that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says, "Oh, I like what Hanan said," or Rabbi Gamliel says, "I like what Admon said." So the voice of Rabbi Gamliel and the voice of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai are the kiyotzebos, are the ones that are having similar positions. Okay, so again, to read what this would say, it would be the following. Betram Shamar Hanan. Wait, let me just say. Betram Shamar Hanan. The 2 things that Hanan says. Halacha kiyotzebo either means we rule like him and we apply it to related cases. We actually extract the principle of it, and we're guided by that principle. That's the way Tosfos reads it, which is powerful to say we don't just leave it to the concrete case. We actually go by it as a principle. Or the way Rashi reads it is the 2 things Hanan say we rule like the one who affirmed it. So
only for someone affirming it.
Well, yes, but by Hanan it was the whole 2. So since Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai affirmed the 2, so we rule like both of those cases. But the reason is because it was affirmed. Okay, Shiva Dvarim She'amar Admon, the 7 things that Admon says, Ein halacha kiyotzebo, which either means like we do not use it as a general rule, is the way Tosfos would say it, or would mean like we don't go like the one who affirmed it. So let's see what the Gemara says. Let's see how the Gemara spells it out. My kamar, what do you say? The 2 things that Hanan said we will like him in those cases, and the one either the one who affirmed it, which is basically just redundant here, and apply it to similar cases.
Right, that'll make more sense. Then.
Right, exactly, because it makes it sound like there's 2 separate points. The Shiva Dvarim Shamar Admon, but it's the 7 things that Admon said, Ein halachimo, so we don't rule like him. The lo kiyotzebo, we don't rule either like him in other related cases, that's just to say, or actually, and we don't rule like the one who affirmed his position. Okay, so anyway, but basically means we totally reject everything Admon said. How could you say that? We know that at least in the first 3 things that Admon says that Rabbi Gamliel affirms, we do rule like him. So you cannot read that earlier statement to say we completely reject Admon. Fine, here's how to read it. The 2 things Hanan says, we rule like him, and again, either and like it in similar cases, and we rule like the one who affirmed his position, which is just being redundant. Shiva Dvarim Shamar Admon, the 7 things that Admon says, Ein halacha kiyotzebo. We don't rule. So let me first read it Tosfos' way. We don't rule like it in similar cases. Hakimoso halacha b'kula, which would suggest that in terms of the concrete cases he's dealing with, we rule like him in all 7. Okay, but that can't be. So wherever he affirms Admon, we will like him. Amar in, only in the places where he affirms Admon, we will like him. Lo Amar la, where he doesn't affirm Admon, we don't like him. So you can't say we rule like Admon in all 7 cases, even in the concrete cases, because we know we only rule like him in the 3 cases. Here's what it means. By Chanan, we will like him, and in related cases. The 7 things that Admon says. Sometimes we rule like him both concretely and in related cases. And says and there are things that we don't rule like him, or in the concrete or in the related cases. What are they? The where Gamliel says we rule like Admon, we go like him, and we apply it not only to those concrete cases but to related cases. And Enoch low, and in the others we don't rule like him or like the related case. So basically, it completely, it reshapes this statement to make it, fit into the frame that we had before. The frame that we had before is we only go like him in 3 cases. This statement, one way or another, sounded like we don't go like him at all. And the Gemara sort of reshaped it to be exactly what we had said until now. So the way Tosfos reads it, what it's just telling you is we rule like Hanan in both of his cases. We rule like Admon in the first 3. Not only do we rule like them in their concrete, specific cases, but we abstract the general principle and we rule similarly in other cases.
For Hanan too?
Yeah, for Hanan too. That's Chiyot. That's the way Tosfos reads. Again, the way Rashi reads, it's a little more complicated to read, but basically it was a way of saying we rule like him in the cases where there was somebody who affirmed what he said, when it was a Chiyot Sebo. When there was somebody who affirmed what he said, we rule like him. When there wasn't someone who affirmed like he said, we don't rule like him. Yes, sir.
Did you ever say anything about when Admon lived, like what generation?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I did not. I'm sure somebody could. Charlie Charlie is checking it up on his iPhone. I don't know.
Okay, right.
All right. It's somewhat early. I mean, you have Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai affirming him, so it's got to be somewhat early. Yeah. Okay.
While the temple was still around.
Wow.
Well, Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai. So
yeah, exactly. Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai was at least the next generation. So yeah, and it's so anyway, okay. So, but yeah, I think it's important to have that historical framing. Okay, Ha'orer al Hasadeh. Now, again, not because we're weaving back and forth between Ksuvas related cases. They're all Dinei Mamonis, that's why it's Shnei Dayanei Gezerot, because they're all like Dinei Mamonis types of cases. Ha'orer al Hasadeh. I basically, Charlie there sold a field to Michael, and I'm saying, Michael, that field you bought, that Charlie sold you, that was actually my field. Charlie was misrepresenting himself. He really did not own that field. He had seized it when I was away on a trip. Okay, he was presenting himself as the owner. That's Charlie for you. Okay, that's really my field. And I'm going to try to go ahead and bring witnesses and prove that it was my field and that Charlie never really established legitimate ownership. And I would win the case. I have the evidence on my side. There's only one little problem. That document of sale that Charlie sold the field to you, I'm one of the witnesses on that document.
Why would you do that?
So let's take a look. And I'm one of the witnesses on that document. Admon says, I do not lose my rights to prove that that's my field. I can say, yeah, you know why? Because Charlie, there's a reason he's a thief and a thug, because everybody is afraid to go up against him, and he's going to send his henchmen against me if I try to, bring him to court. So I wanted him to sell the field to you so I could retrieve it from you. Now you're going to have to go try to get your money back from Charlie. Good luck. Okay, so that's why just because I signed the document does not prove that I'm conceding it's not my field.
So that's not like the Iver.
I could actually make.
Is that not a problem to do that?
Like,
in other words, like
I'm
if you're saying you're not going to get from Charlie, let me shift the problem onto me.
Right, that I'm basically tricking you into throwing your money down the way, making, risking your money.
Why do you have to say it that way? Why can't it be, listen, you extorted me. I really
terrified of you. Okay, so that could be, but I was thinking that too. Now, like if Charlie would come to me and say, I want to make sure that exactly. I stole that field from you. You're not going to do anything. I'm holding a gun to your head, and now you're going to sign the document, and it's going to be right. So I don't know why he can't, but maybe because that would have required more evidence or something.
But if you didn't hold a gun to your head, then you just signed on it.
Right.
Do that?
Well, that's the
So,
point.
no, I'm
that's
meaning,
what,
like,
that's
morally.
the chiddush of Admon's statement, right? If I were claiming that I was forced, right, that's like a harder claim to substantiate. If I'm claiming, I don't have to claim that Charlie was doing anything to get me to sign the document. I just willingly said, I heard Charlie was signing it. I wanted to make that happen. I came running to sign the document because it was going to be easier for me. So yes, you could say that I'm claiming that I was forced, but that's a harder claim to substantiate. Here I'm just saying, no, I just completely did it willingly, and here's why.
And is that actually mutter for you to
Now,
do?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe it's not mutter for me to do. But anyway, but at least Admon says I could make that claim. The Chachamim say, Ibeidet Zuchuto, I'm sorry. If you signed a document as a witness that was saying that it was Charlie's field that he was selling to Michael, then you are implicitly conceding that it was Charlie's. Again, if you can prove you were forced, it's a different story. And here, by the way, we don't rule like Admon, we rule like the Chachamim, which makes sense. Now, siman la'acher ibeidet zuchuto. Let's say that here's a case where even Admon would agree, okay, which is that Charlie is not selling this field to you, Michael. He's selling the field one field over. Okay, he's selling field B to you, not field A. And when he's describing the boundaries of field B, on it says field B has its north limit is field C, its west limit is field D, its south limit is field E, and its what was I left over? Its east limit, its east edge is field A, and all of those are my other fields, and I'm selling you this field B in the middle. So he was using the field I say he stole from me as a way of showing you what the borders are of the field he's selling to you. But in that document, he was claiming that field is his. Right, field A is his, right? You got the point? Yeah. So therefore, I have no reason I would have signed that document. It's not making it any easier for me to retrieve field A. In passing in that document, it's claiming that field A belongs to Charlie. Okay, but he's not selling field A to you. He's selling the neighboring field to you.
He's just using it as a boundary marker.
As a boundary marker.
To simplify
it. Exactly. And really so why the fact that I am signing that document, it doesn't benefit me at all to sign that document. And that document is saying that field is Charlie's. So there, even Admon agrees that I have no claim, and that I've lost any right to claim it was my field. Okay, but the debate is when he is selling it to Michael, and can I say, yes, I signed it because I would rather go to court with Michael. Okay, Amar Abaye, says Abaye, Lo shanu ella aid. When is there a debate? That's when I signed as a witness, or not even a debate. When is it that there are cases where my signature concedes that it is Charlie's field? When I'm signing as a witness. Aval Dayan, but let's say it was the same document that Charlie had sold the field to Michael, and basically he was selling the field that I'm claiming is mine. And the document came, here before me, Dove, and David, and we needed to validate the signatures. Okay, so we went ahead, we looked at the signatures, we said, yes, we recognize the signatures on these documents, we gave it our stamp, and we validated the shtar. And in the document it said that Charlie was selling a particular field to you, and then I claimed that field actually was mine, it wasn't Charlie's. Does the fact that I was part of the signing of the validating of the signatures, does that become a concession, an admission that it wasn't my field?
I think they make it worse.
Right? I validated the signatures on a document that said that it was Charlie's field. Why shouldn't that be an admission that it's not my field?
I think it is. No.
So he says not. Aval Dayan, lo ibeidet zuchuto. If you were a judge to endorse the signatures, you do not implicitly concede what's being stated in the document. Why? Because Rabbi Chia taught, witnesses cannot sign a document unless they've read it, because the document is attesting to something, and they have to know what they're attesting to. So they got to read it before they sign it. So
they have to know both how to read and write.
Yeah, but judges who are being asked to endorse the signatures on a document, we don't have to read it. All we have to do is attest to the fact that these are the right signatures. You bring over a notary public, and to get her to give her the notary thing, I keep on saying she, because every time I've dealt with a notary public, it's always been a woman. Anyway, I don't know why. She or he, anyway, doesn't have to read the document. They just are testifying that your signatures are your signatures.
Unless you're in Israel, you should see what you have to do for a notary in Israel. I could not believe it. It was like going to a law firm and reading the whole deal.
Really?
I thought, signatures, okay. Oh, no.
You should have told them this Gemara. All right, so therefore,
but if you said I read it and disagree,
so when the notary signs it, or the judges sign and validate the signature, and validate the signature, there is no implicit attesting to any of the content that is in the document.
But if you actually were a judge and said, I read it and I disagree, and you said,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
changed everything.
I guess. Now, if, however, the field was used as a marker and wasn't being sold to Michael, then even Admon agrees that it's an implicit admission. Why else would I have signed the document?
Wait, implicit? I didn't understand that case clearly. In other words,
Michael sold a field to Charlie sold a field to Michael, and he said the north boundary of that field is this other field we'll call Field A. That's the north boundary of the field I'm selling to you. Field A is the field that I'm claiming was mine that Charlie stole from me. But Charlie says to Michael, the north boundary of the field I'm selling you, Michael, is my other field, Field A. So he's claiming Field A is his field, and he's using it as a boundary marker for the field he's selling Michael. And I'm saying it's my field. If I signed the document of sale, if I was a witness to the document of sale, then I have conceded that it's Charlie's field. Why else would I ever sign a document of sale in which Charlie is saying that it's his field if I did not concede that it was his field? But Adnon's only claim is that if I'm signing it to get the field to change hands, I have an argument why I wanted it to change hands, because it would be easier for me to take Michael to court.
But here you missed a fine print in that.
I know, that's why you got to be careful what you're reading. Okay, I'm a Rabbi, says Rabbi. Lo shanu ela la'acher. That's only if you're selling it to somebody else. Okay, but aval atzmo. Let's say Charlie is selling me one of his fields. Okay, and Charlie is so he's not enough for him to steal my field. He has to rub it in. So he's selling me one of his fields, and he's saying the north boundary of the field I'm selling you is Field A, which is my field. Okay, the field that I'm saying he stole from me. Okay, so so I basically, so you got it. So Charlie sold the field to me with a document that basically, used in it the field I'm saying is mine, and he's claiming and he's claiming that that's the boundary of the field he's selling.
He's getting money, not losing any land.
So but why am I participating in that sale and allowing him to write that in the document unless I was actually conceding that it was his? So he said, in that case, okay, should it be an admission that it's not yours? Because why else would you allow him to write it in the document? So he says, no, actually, in that case, it's not an admission. Why is it not an admission? In that case, lo ibedet zechuto. You do not lose your right. Why not? 1 minute. Let me just check. 1 minute. I just want to check Rashi a second. 1 minute. Right. Right. Okay. So anyway, but in that case, I did not lose my rights. Why not? Why would I participate in a document that was using my own field and claiming that it was Charlie's? The Amar idolo avdi lehachi. If I had not let him do that, having lo havi mazbinli, he wouldn't have sold me that other field, right? I was at least, so I would have screwed up the deal. If I would have said, no, I refuse to sign a document that you're using my own field as a boundary marker and claiming it's yours. So I said, fine, then I'm not going to sell you the field. Okay, so I was sort of being pressured. If I needed that field, he already stole one field. I wanted to at least have another field to use in its stead or whatever. I had no choice but to go along with how he was, what he was doing. Okay, so so what should you say back? Okay, but if that's why you agreed to it, because you needed to do it so he would sell you the other field, so no, that at least you should have informed witnesses that you were being forced. Okay, this is an idea which is called a moda'ah, which basically means that if somebody is holding a gun to your head and forcing you to exactly, a very good point, forcing you to enter into a deal or to sign a document or to do something that is not true, you get witnesses and you tell them, you should know, I am testifying to you right now that deal I'm about to enter into, I am actually doing it under your coercion and under duress. And then later you can produce those witnesses to try to reverse the deal. So if basically I felt that I'm buying that field from Charlie, he's using my own field as a boundary marker, but I really have no choice because I need to buy the other field from him, then why didn't I at least tell witnesses that you should know I'm going to be using this document, but I'm not really conceding to what it says in it. I really just don't have any choice. So that's your counterclaim. No, I couldn't do that. Why not? Your friend has a friend. And your friend's friend has a friend, which is the Gemara's way of saying Ben Franklin's line, which is 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. Okay, so Ben Franklin. So which basically means it's all very nice to do a moda'ah, but I could claim that I won't do a moda'ah, that if I did a moda'ah, I would lose the field because he would eventually find out. Now, of course, if that was a real concern, you would never be able to do a moda'ah because the word would get out and whatever. But anyway, but at least that's enough of a basis for me to say that's why, don't interpret my signature or don't interpret my using this document as a concession. I have a reasonable explanation why I used the document. I used it because I needed to buy the field. He wouldn't have sold it to me otherwise, and I was concerned that I couldn't let other people know. And since that's a reasonable explanation, my signing on that document is not interpreted as a losing of my rights and as a concession. Yes.
Can women be witnesses?
No, not in this formal sense. I mean, in Ashkenaz in the Middle Ages, in the time of the Rishonim, they basically, for all intents and purposes, accepted women as witnesses, but they did it by sort of saying we're using them as evidence, not as witnesses, by sort of that type of a loophole. And the basic difference would be, so it would be a difference like in terms of like can you, when you need witnesses in a formal sense, like to validate a wedding or get or something like that. All right, so the Gemara says like, yes.
So this is kasha against the Linzer moda'ah, in other words, right? In other words,
that's a counterclaim. Here's why I was not Motzer Moda'ah, and here's why you should believe me when I say that I did not, that I signed because I really didn't have a choice, and that it really wasn't.
Because if I would have gotten those witnesses, it would have gotten out within 5 minutes, and he would have made mincemeat of me.
Exactly. So
he would have reneged. He would not have allowed me to go.
So that's why I can say that I used my That's why I can say that I agreed to use that document, even though it basically was using my own field.
And you can't tell me I should have gotten 18 because within 2 minutes I would have been vulnerable.
Correct. Okay, so now we have a nice little story.
Did you want this thing?
No, I have another one.
Oh.
I don't know what that's doing.
Oh.
Okay, so now we have another one. Okay. So there was a case exactly like this, that a guy signed on a field and signed on a document, and his own field was used as a siman for the other field as a boundary marker, and the guy in the document was claiming it was his when this guy, said it was stolen. So wait a minute. Tahu irer v'shachi. Then he challenged it and he died. Okay, before he had a chance to actually finally bring the case to court, right? And so then the court appointed an apotropos, a guardian, or an executor, somebody to represent the orphans in all of their business dealings, among which is the question about this field that their now dead father was claiming actually was his.
It was used as a simon in another sale.
Exactly.
He lost it.
Exactly. He had forfeited his rights by having signed that document. But now there's an apotropos who's going to try to argue the case for the orphans. As apotropos, so the apotropos came in front of Rabbi. Rabbi said to him, and he brought evidence that this field was stolen, that it really belonged to the heirs, the orphans. Rabbi said, no, I'm sorry. The father, forfeited the rights. He signed on a document, and it was used as a boundary marker, and he implicitly conceded that it wasn't his. So I'm sorry, you lost they lost the rights. You lost out. So Amar, so the apotropos said, if the father would still be alive, here's what he would claim. He would say, yeah, I conceded 1 furrow's length. I didn't concede the whole field. Okay? So if he said, right, if this basically is the field that's being sold, right? If this is the field, we'll call it A, and basically, and I say on the field is bordered on the east by field B, which is by my field B, right? That's what the document says. It's bordered on the east by my field B, and I signed off on it. So that's how much of my field B is my field? Maybe my field B means this is the field. That's the field I conceded. Who said, right, the tiny little furrow, the tiny little strip. That's the amount I was willing to concede was his. I wasn't conceding the whole field B was his. He says on the east, it's bordered by my field, by my other field, fine. That was your other field, that tiny little strip, not the whole plot. So that's all.
Does it make sense to say that when everything?
I don't know. The point is that we're trying to, it's.
You're selling like 500 acres of land every way, and you're saying just one furrow.
No, he's not selling a furrow. He's using that as a border marker. All right. Anyway, so that's what the father would have said. Okay, you have to understand that. Bottom line, he's proven that it was the father's field, and the only point is that the only reason is because of an implicit admission. So if it's possible to interpret that implicit admission otherwise, or we can understand other reasons he might have written that, like we said before, we would interpret that generously.
But who's not to say that you actually really sold it to that other guy? Now you're trying to cheat him.
That is possible, but then he should have a star. Okay, but you're right. Meaning, what Michael says is worth taking a moment out to appreciate. How do you prove it's stolen by real estate? What do? You prove that Charlie came in with his thugs and kicked me out? No, what you prove it's stolen is it's really an absence of proof. You show that the field had been registered to me. Charlie does not have a document of sale. He doesn't have 3 years of chazaka. So that's proof that it's stolen. It's really absence of proof that Charlie took possession of it. And that's the way it works in real estate if he doesn't have that document of sale. So what Michael is saying is actually correct. I could prove it's stolen, but it really wasn't stolen. It really was that Charlie did buy it. Charlie just lost the document of sale, right? So it's important to appreciate that side of it as well. That even if I've proven it's stolen, it's really not black and white that it's stolen.
Okay, so this wouldn't even be getting off the ground if Charlie had been there for 3 years.
Exactly. Okay.
In any of these cases.
Exactly. Or if you had a document of sale or anything like that. Right. Okay. So anyway, Havitani would have said, fine. So, I conceded field A was yours, but I only conceded that the tiny little strip of field A. So I said back to him, Shaber Kamarti, you know what? That's a good point. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, in Toin V'Amar, if he actually claims and says, that I wasn't conceding the whole field, only one furrow, Neman, he would be believed. Okay, so basically they awarded the field back to the orphans. Okay, Shkayach, good job. Then he said, one thing though, yes, the orphans got the field back, but now at least you have to give Charlie that strip. At least give Charlie back that strip that the father conceded. Right. There was a whole what's it called? A cope? What's it called when you have trees? A copse, or whatever. A copse of like a palm tree. Okay.
What do you mean?
There was a whole.
Seriously?
Yeah. COPSE. Like a dense row, whatever. Anyway, that's what it means. There was some thicket, a dense row of palm trees on it. I didn't want to give him the strip. It had all these palm trees on it. Okay, it was worth $10,000, even that tiny little strip. So Amarle, so the Apotropos said back to Abaye, had the father been around, he would say, after, yes, I conceded that strip was Charlie's, but then afterwards I bought it back from him. Okay, now of course it's a little bit bizarre. So where's your bill of sale? Okay, but somehow because the whole thing is only being proven to be Charlie's, it's not really proven. It's only because of my own admission that it was his. So we're very willing to reinterpret that in a way that neutralizes what that meant. Okay. Well, yeah, Rashi sort of says it's like a pesha asar. But okay.
Right.
So this guy's doing a pretty good job.
Tosfos says the only reason it works, Tosfos is very bothered why it works. Once I've conceded that it was his, how could I just say I bought it back? So Tosfos says that the document really did not have validated witnesses. So in theory, you could have claimed that the whole document was a forgery, and that gave extra weight to my other claims. But okay, it's not clear.
But you basically are saying that.
I know. Anyway, Amalei, he said, Shapir Kamarti, you know what? That's a good point. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan says, in Tan va'amar. So first Rabbi Yochanan said you can claim that all you conceded to was the tiny strip. And then Rabbi Yochanan says, and if you then claim and said, Chazarti v'lakachli mimenu, yes, I concede that strip was his and then I repurchased it from him, Neman, you'd also be believed. Okay, so you did an excellent job. That was brilliant. And you were mechavin exactly to what Rabbi Yochanan had said that it's possible to claim as a way of winning in this case. Amar Rabbi, so Rabbi said, "Hi man demukim apotropos. If you're ever going to appoint if you're ever going to appoint somebody to handle your affairs, nuki kihai, get a guy like this. The other love chusei bezuchus yasmi. He really knows how to argue in favor of you. So Rabbi was handing out his business card. So anyway, Tosfos is just left asking, Why did we need this guy to argue with? Because based in always is supposed to make the best argument for the orphans. So why did Abaye initially rule against him and require this as a counter argument? Why didn't Abaye make this ruling? So Toz says, you know what? Abaye actually forgot what Rabbi Yochanan had said, and it wasn't until this guy made the argument that Abaye said, "Oh yeah, Taka." Rabbi Yochanan said, "You can't if you say that you are believing." And he remembered because of this argument. Okay. I tell you, that's a whole profession called what do you call it? Like a Toin Rabbani. Okay, because God forbid we don't have lawyers. We just
Okay. Joseph would rather argue that he forgot than be left with an inexplicable sort of silence.
Right. How is it that you're not defending the interests of the orphans?
Yeah.
Right.
So we have lawyers who are especially plead before the Supreme Court in the United States.
Yeah.
I think it's a special
specialty, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Gemara says, "Ni shalach hamdinas hiyam." All this stuff about going overseas. Somebody went overseas. The avdad derech sadehu. And here's the story. We have these big, like you ever, I mean, we don't live in like, in Kansas, right? But sometimes you're driving and, you see these huge wheat fields, right? So here we go. We have like, huge hundreds of acres of wheat fields, right? Now, let's say they're not all owned by the same person. Right in the middle of all these hundreds of acres, here's the main road, okay? Whatever, I don't care if there's a whatever. Here's these hundreds of acres. Here are the cars going by when you're seeing all the cows, right? When we get out to the nation. Somewhere in here is Reuven's field. Okay, all these other fields are owned by other people. Okay, now Reuven has a right of access to get to his field. He has some type of a path and a right of access to get to his field. Okay, the thing is that Reuven then went on an overseas journey for a few years. He came back. In the interim, the path doesn't exist anymore.
His wife sells
okay, no, not his wife sells the path. It's all filled with corn. The path doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so he basically says, "Give me back my, give me back my field." The only thing is that nobody remembers where that path was. Was this the path? Was this the path? Was that the path? Nobody remembers where the path was, or if they're claiming they don't remember. He went overseas, and as the path to his field got lost. So fine. Give him the shortest one, but he obviously knows that he does have one path here, and he's entitled to one way of getting in. So you got to at least give him the shortest one.
They're all equally short.
So
let's say it's bordered by.
Who knows? But the point is, you can't tell him. Now he assumes it really only makes sense if there's like one person that owns all of these fields. Then Reuben comes to Shimon and says, "Shimon, you got to give me my path." And Shimon says, "Which path? You don't know. But you know that you owe me a path. So pick one. You have the right to pick the shortest one, or the one that goes through the least whatever. You can choose, but you got to give me a path because you owe me a path." That's what Admon says. And the Chachamim say, no, if you don't know what path is yours, the guy could charge you $100,000 for a path. Oh, yifrach ba'avir, or fly in the air. Okay, which means basically, I'm really sorry, get lost, you have no rights. And if he wants to charge you $1 million for a path, he's entitled. And if you say, "I can't get to my field," then he can tell you, "That's not my problem. It's not my problem how you're going to get to your field. If you go ahead, learn how to fly." Yes.
It is now a feasible solution to fly through the air.
Yes, thank you. I do know that. Yes.
But it wasn't in Titanic times.
When did they first discover hot air balloons?
Late 18th century.
Really? Okay, yeah.
It behooves us to understand that we're talking about Jewish people and how they get along with each other.
Right.
I mean, we go into these abstract, marvelous discussions, but these are they're neighbors.
They're businessmen.
Family. I don't care. You call them. They're also, in addition to businessmen, neighbors. They know each other's families, or they could be relatives. This is the way they act with each other.
That would fall away in 2 seconds if your next door neighbor knocked on your door and said, "Oh, by the way, my uncle had bought like half of your front yard that really belonged to me." All of your neighborly stuff would change in 2 seconds.
All right, my time exactly.
I hear you.
Let's take a look at tomorrow. My time of Rabbanan. What's the reason of the rabbis? Shaper Kamar Admon. Admon says it's saying well. All right. There is some path there that's mine. Even if I can't prove which one, you got to give me something. So, Amar Rav Yud, Amar Rav. Different people own all of these different fields. This is owned by Shimon, this is owned by Levi, this is owned by Yehuda, right? This is owned whatever. So any one person I bring to court, they say, no, the path wasn't in my field. In my field, it was in the other guy's field. So everybody, I can't take anybody to court. Okay? Yehochi says, if that's true, my time at the Admon. Then what's Admon's claim? Then of course, if you're right. You can't prove that anybody owes you the path. So Amar Rava, okay, we have to find a middle case. If there are 4 separate owners of the 4 surrounding fields, then or the arba the asum mikol achad, or there are 4 separate owners that originated in one owner. It used to be that all this stuff around here was Shimon's, but then Shimon sold it off to 4 separate people. So now I go to court and I say Shimon owed me a path. All right, but Shimon isn't around. Which of these 4 people do you want to demand your path from? And I don't know which one of them, whose field it's in. So you can't bring any particular person to court. So in that case, everybody agrees that you've lost, that you're stuck. Okay. That everybody you want to bring to court can say the path wasn't in my yard. Go prove the path was in my field. Keep pleading when they debate that it used to be that the 4 directions were owned by 4 separate people, and then Shimon came, and Shimon was one of those mega corporations and bought up all the fields. Okay, and they were also trying to buy up my field. Okay, that's why they were forcing me out or whatever. Okay, so some big corporation came and bought these up, but these were all owned by separate farmers. Okay, but now my path is definitely in one of the fields owned by this corporation. So I should be able to bring this, it doesn't have to be a corporation, but I should be able to bring this one person to court and say, somewhere in those fields that you bought up is my path. You have to give me a path. Okay, that seems like a reasonable argument. So, I don't care. Originally, I didn't know whose field it was in. Now I know that my path is in one of the fields that you own. Rabbanan Savri and the rabbis told, shot this. I can say back to you, look, buddy, shut up, and it'll be in your best interest, and we'll make some deal. I'll sell it to you on the cheap or something like that. But below, if you want to actually bring this to court, then you're going to lose. Why are you going to lose? I will just go ahead and sell the field, give the fields back to the people I bought it from. And you won't be able to bring them to court because there are 4 different owners and each owner will push you off to the next. And that's a very bizarre claim, I have to tell you, because then I would say back, fine, you want to do that? Go sell it back to them. Like, you're not going to want to sell it back to them. You wanted the field for a particular reason. You would lose out in the whole transaction or whatever. And it seems like I'm not really saying that I'm going to sell it back. It seems like that what I'm saying is, since originally, when you originally had that path, and when it was originally lost where it was or whatever, you could not win the court case, then you don't get more rights now just because I consolidated all the fields. Okay, since it originated in a scenario in which you could not have successfully, sued for the recovery of your path. Yes.
I was going to say, it's like if this guy's squeezing him, it's not a reasonable response.
Thank you.
Yes, I know, right. Okay. So the Gemara says, so if that's the scenario anyway, I think my sympathies are here with Admon. Not just because my sympathies are with this poor guy that lost the path, but it's because I just don't really get the argument you can't win now because it originated in a scenario that you couldn't win. Fine, but now I can win. Now you have all the fields. So 1 minute. Somebody said on his deathbed to his children, Dikla Libras, give this palm tree to my daughter. It was a deathbed bequest. Azu Yasme plog l'nichse. The orphans, the heirs, of course, the sons, the men, went and they divided up the whole estate. Lo yavu la dikla, and they divided it without considering the fact that she was entitled to a palm tree. And now she's coming and she wants her palm tree. And
did everyone know which palm tree it was?
No, he wasn't specific which one. They had to pick a palm tree. Give her a palm tree. And they didn't do that. They divided it all up. And now she's coming to court and she says, I want my palm tree. And every one of her brothers says, go to the other brother. Your palm tree's in his property. So, Azu Yasmi, okay, Dikla, Sarah of Yosef Rabim, Rahaina Masnisim. That's our Mishnah, that everybody can push her off, just like all of these different owners of the field can push them off to the other owner. So, Amar Le'abai said, no, Midam, you can't compare. Hassam, Kochad B'chad Mati Matkile. There, everybody who owns some of the fields can say your path was never in my field, right? And I never, so I'm not your litigant at all. Your path was never in my field.
Right.
Hacha, Dikla Gabayu. Here, there was no question that the estate owed her a palm tree. Okay, so it started with the fact that the estate owed her a palm tree. And therefore, just because they divided the estate doesn't entitle them to the fact, right, that they had to do it. Now,
Talmud says that.
right, Gabayu, Maita Kantayu. So what should you do? Leitzule Dikla. So just reverse it all. Give her a palm tree, and you could give her the cheapest one because he wasn't specific. And then go ahead and redivide the estate. Okay, if you think that giving her the palm tree makes it unfair, why does one brother have to give and not the other? Fine, just reverse it all. But you have to now. Part of the reason here also is it should be said not just that it started with that obligation, because remember the Gemara said if originally these were all owned by one person and then it was divided to 4 separate people, you're also stuck because who are you going to bring to court? But here the point is also that it was a non-specific palm tree. If the guy had said, right, give her the following palm tree. I don't know. And he wrote it on a piece of paper, and which exactly palm tree he meant. And then the piece of paper was lost. Let's say some scenario like that, right? And then they divided the estate. Maybe they could get away with it because they could always say, every brother could say, this isn't the specific palm tree that Dad was talking about. Right, so part of the reason here why they remain obligated is because it was never a specific one, which you could say it was in this plot of land as opposed to that plot of land. It was always that the estate had to ensure that she got a palm tree, and therefore that remains even after the estate is divided.
If I were an attorney for this woman, I'd say get a palm tree from each brother, and then you don't have to worry about going back to the land together.
Yeah, let's get the brothers to agree to that.
You should be
All right, so the Gemara said like this. Somebody said to his heirs, like right before he died, Dikla Libras, give a palm tree to my daughter. Apparently it was a thing. Shachiv, he died. Shavik Trey Page de Dikla. And he left over, there was a lot of individual palm trees, and then there was 2 palm trees that he had 50% ownership in. So the heirs would rather give her the 2 palm trees of 50% ownership, which is a much bigger pain in the neck dealing with a partner and the whole thing, than 1 palm tree of 100% ownership. Okay, and that's what they wanted to say, and that would fulfill the deathbed bequest. So Yosef Ravashi, so Ravashi was sitting and he was like, struggling with it. What people call 2 halves of 2 palm trees a palm tree. Olo or not. I'm going to leave Mordechai Ravashi. Mordechai said said Ravashi. Hachi Amar Avimi Mehagronia Mishmei Rava. Here's what was said in the name of Rava. Yes, people will call 2 halves a whole, and therefore they're entitled to give it to her because basically, since it's not specific what the father wanted, he has the upper hand is on the heirs, and as long as they can make a reasonable claim that this is fulfilling the deathbed wishes of the deceased, then they're actually then they're discharging their obligation.
Just going to
Okay, so what? Go on.
No,
Well, I did actually prepare the next one. You have to take it. Okay.
it's up to you. I'm just saying it's like a long.
No, we're going to end because because the last stop is also really only an omelet just before behind. You'll be able,
Yeah, but the next to last